Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the Powerpuff Girls movie from 2002. I had never seen this movie till I did this review, and I had heard so much more how it was so dark and the reputation of the film. I don't think necessarily this is a dark movie, a bad adaptation or something. I actually think it's a very solid cinematic tale of the Powerpuff Girls, kind of feeling exactly at home. Clearly, obviously, the same creative team, and it feels that way. It has a real fun, good energy to it, much like the show. But I think one thing it does is this is an origin story. So it's not going to be your average, like, hey, we go on an adventure type of thing. And as an origin story, and particularly a superhero movie origin story, and one in 2002, it's remarkably solid. I would actually say it's better than the first X-Men movie, which was not great. And I'm kind of surprised, because I do wonder why it has kind of a negative reputation and stuff, because what I saw was, hey, I'm watching the Powerpuff Girls, and as someone who still watches the show, I wouldn't say like every day or something, but I rarely go a month without just checking out a random Powerpuff Girls cartoon, and I don't think this is unreflective of the show. Obviously it's different because it's an origin story, so the whole idea that, yeah, this doesn't feel like a random episode, well, no, duh, this is setting up everything. And not just setting up, I think the one thing that's interesting about this is it's setting up almost every relationship that the show sort of takes for granted. Both the Powerpuff Girls with the professor and Mojo Jojo, but also how the town feels about the girls and why the town feels that way about the girls. In so many episodes of the show, you just sort of go, oh yeah, the mayor calls and there's a thing and all that. And this sets it all up, and really well, I wonder if you had just had one that kind of felt like just sort of a random episode. Oftentimes when shows go to movies, it almost feels like an annual, if you know that from comic books, where it's like a story that's like, might be good or whatever, but it has like very little to do with the continuity. And this, much like, the Rugrats movie or something at the same time, very much was cued into the continuity of the show, which I think was actually kind of a smart way to do it. I don't think of all the movie things of the late 90s, early 2000s, this is the only one that really did an origin story that I can think of. The rest kind of like did like random things. And I think the Powerpuff Girls movie was doing something different while also trying to do a superhero origin story, which I think they actually do a fairly good job at. And even now, I wouldn't put it on the lower tier of that. I'd probably say it's actually a pretty good one, and even does things like, hey, the origin of their windows. That's what people paid money for. They even kind of make fun of themselves and all that, but they use the bigger budget to have like crazy action set pieces, between the thing of the little girls playing tag to their huge action set piece with Mojo Jojo, which I really like. Now, the plot of this is basically the origin story of the Powerpuff Girls, and then you get with Mojo Jojo, and then you get the thing with Mojo Jojo where after they are kind of rejected, after they play this game of tag, the town is furious at them because they cause all this mass devastation. The professor is locked up, and the girls won't use their powers because they were told not to, and Mojo Jojo sort of takes advantage of that and has them make a machine that's like the town will like us better machine, the perfect town machine, whatever. This machine that will make everyone in the town love them, which was obviously a superhero, supervillain kind of plot, which is very obvious about itself, but they were also, one, literally born yesterday, and two, are actually 5 years old. So it's like, come on, that's fine. What happens then when he gets all these primates to kind of like attack the city, and the Powerpuff Girls have to save the day, which, you can guess they do. Spoilers for this movie. Some of it is really funny and kind of shows the kind of how smart this show was, particularly like when he makes all these, apes from the zoo really smart. Suddenly Mojo Jojo is trying to be the leader, but all of them want to be the leader, which I thought was like it was really funny, like all the various different apes and characters they came up with for that. And then the Powerpuff Girls, when they have to stop them, the action set piece of that is just really awesome and amazing. So many jokes. Like, I honestly felt like I could rewatch this movie and pick up more jokes that I would laugh at. Like the one where like they save a woman and they're flying with her, and then she goes like, this baby, or my baby, I forget. And then they save her and they save the baby, and she's like, this isn't my baby. And that was like funny. I think this movie really shines, and I would actually I never got to see it on the big screen. I think this could go with like, a nice little re-release or something, because I would actually like some revival screening just for those action set pieces, because when you can do a really good action set piece on the big screen, it is quite thrilling. And just on my TV, I got to watch this because free on demand. Thanks, Cartoon Network. They really do a lot with it, and they don't just let, like, just cut away to random villain. Like, they have a lot of fun with it, whether it was like an ape who likes throwing banana peels, a gorilla who has punching arms, this one who has a tank, this one who does that, a barrel full of monkeys. Like, it really felt like, they have a large amount of talent working on this, from Lauren Faust to directed by Craig McCracken to animation directed by Gendy Tarkovsky. You can tell that amount of talent is working on this. This was, of course, really the only Cartoon Network movie. I would say Teen Titans Go and Ninjago would also count as that, but those are licensed properties, I guess. So this is the only one developed for Cartoon Network that actually got a movie, and that's really a shame. I feel like they did a good film, and it's clear from the opening little thing that they were planning on doing more. With Gendy Tarkovsky, who did the animation direction, supposedly did more that he should have been credited for, I keep saying, but that seems very vague, so maybe that's not true. I love Craig McCracken's style. I love the amount of people who worked on this show. I think that's one of the things that makes the show so special, and also made the movie special as well. I do remember this movie kind of like flying under the radar. It did have a poster outside of the locker room. I had to go in for gym class, and I don't know why that was out there. It was weird. It was like in high school. I was like, oh, this is a Powerpuff Girls movie. Cool. I should have seen that. I think this is a very solid film. If you're a fan of Powerpuff Girls, you've probably already seen it, but if you haven't, like me, you'd be happy with it. It's a very good version of it, and it's actually a good origin story. It's able to introduce everything fairly well. It doesn't necessarily feel like that was the origin of that, particularly with its relationship with the town, which is something the show just goes like, hey, they have a good relationship with the town, they're superhero girls, and it just never really, I feel like they've gone into it with other episodes. I think that's an important relationship, and it's sort of the backbone of the show, and it's something the Powerpuff Girls movie actually gives a decent amount of time for, and gives you understanding to. It has a lot of great jokes in it. I love the, like, I think the town will accept you, and it was like freakish big-eyed girls wreak havoc or something. But like I that was really funny. I really don't think this movie is the darkest Powerpuff Girls thing. I think there's certain episodes, particularly one where they have like a race and they run too fast into the future, and then the town is destroyed because they've been gone for like 20 years or something, and everyone's really old, and it's like Days of Future Past, the Powerpuff Girls years or something. That was darker than anything in this movie. And I do think the problem with this movie, and maybe the problem with putting TV shows to movies, is necessarily with critics, they're film critics, not necessarily experts in television animation, and nor do they have to be necessarily. Maybe it would be cool if they'd watch some of those shows, but they don't have to be. And I think this is their exposure to the Powerpuff Girls. I don't necessarily think this is what I would show people first. Think about that. Would you show someone the Powerpuff Girls movie as the first thing you ever saw from Powerpuff Girls? You probably would not. You would probably show them a few episodes of the show and then go, also, there's this movie, it's pretty good. I don't think it is. That's the thing with most movies that come out of shows, is they're very rarely, if ever, better or the best thing that the show ever produced. But it is still a solid, really great film. I'm surprised, I was like, why didn't they try to get this a Best Animated Feature nomination? I think that would have been cool, particularly because it kind of just got beaten up and not really treated very well. But I really genuinely enjoy this film. I think it is a solid animated film and a solid superhero origin story. It is able to use the iconography and use everything you love about the show and not make it feel like that was the origin of that. Make it prove it to you and make you really feel like, oh, hey, that makes sense. Maybe the darker elements were things people were surprised by because they were expecting very pink t-shirts and stuffed animals and things that they were probably more used to. And this movie doesn't really do that. It does a movie of the show, which is what it was supposed to do. So I think it was more of a miscommunication or a miscalculation or really just ignorance that led to kind of poor reviews on something that I actually think is a fairly good movie. It's a shame, because of its failure, we couldn't get more Cartoon Network movies. I think that might be changing nowadays. No, I don't have any inside information. I'm just saying because Teen Titans Go got released. I like the style of this. It is able to use the kind of UPA-ish style that Craig McCracken and Gendy Tarkovsky were so known for and bring it to the big screen and give it a little more 3D-ish things and things like that. Animation wise, it's really looks like a big screen thing. I'm serious about, I would watch probably a revival screening of this. I would be happy to do that. It kind of shows you what the talent pool there could really do, but I still think it is within the realm of the entire show of the original or classic show, as they call it on demand. I don't think it is the best thing, but I still think it is a really solid, fun entry. It's a bright spot in a year that was pretty good with animation, we had Spirited Away, Lilo and Stitch, which I think are better, but I still think this is like a solid animated film, and actually better than Hey Arnold the movie, which came out right around this time. It's very much reflective of the show, but I'd say it's different, but it's different in the way that makes sense. There's a narrative reason it makes sense. It's not just different because they want to do some crazy plot about like some redevelopers or something. I'm really talking shit about the Hey Arnold movie, but it feels like the show, while also it had a narrative reason to be different, and it worked that very well. I think this is a decent animated film, and I think it really does deserve more of a reevaluation. It seems to be that's happening more and more with this movie, and I wish it had done better at the box office, but I'll talk about that in a different video. I think this is a film that deserves a reevaluation and deserves its place in the positivity and the good reception that the rest of the Powerpuff Girls classic original run has gotten. So if you've seen the Powerpuff Girls movie and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.